Starting lineup: Ambessa, Viego, Yasuo, Samira, Pantheon, up against Heimerdinger, Warwick, Akali, Jinx, Fortune. Rating of the picks for a casual game: Ambessa as a top, 6. Viego in the jungle, 7. Yasuo as a mid, 9. Pantheon in support, 10. Heimerdinger as a top, 10. Warwick in the jungle, 8. Akali as a mid. We're gonna bump Akali down for the casuals from a 7 to a 6, so that's a 6 for Akali, cause nobody can play her. Jinx as a shooter. We're gonna bump Jinx down from a 5 to a 4, so that's a 4 for Jinx. Fortune in support, 0. I'm trying out something new in this game, Samira, a swashbuckler type. We have a lot of room for error here going up against Jinx and Fortune. This is a good environment to test something in. And there may be some frustration down the line, but a lot can be fixed with the desire to deliver on a new promise. You have all these people running around trying to find their own little path, their own little role. Let's see who finds it first. Taking a big risk here up front trying to steal that kill. And just such a mismatch. Really should have used Shield Vault here rather than Aegis Assault. And of course still easily gets Fortune down. And you can't duel up against Pantheon. It's not Call of Duty, you have a pistol and I have a pistol and we're trying to shoot each other. This isn't how this works. There are role elements in League universe that you cannot just ignore. And just being able to hop around like this makes it even more appealing not to get boots. Probably still not letting go of my abilities enough. Samira's second spell has the ability to break incoming projectiles, and for now we're just using it as a damage tool. A Heimerdinger matchup, you have to monitor his turrets, go full anti-mage right away. The only item you should be concerned with is Wit's End, and after that perhaps Kanek. You want to block out as much of that mage damage as is possible. You monitor the mana, you go after the turrets individually, it costs a lot to put them up. You see he's run out of mana in this case. That's where Eloy would be cheating. It doesn't cost you mana. But with Heimerdinger you can wait him out and just completely drain him by taking down the turrets individually every time. If you leave them up, at the very least, he's going to revenge himself after going down. And it's a considerate thing, it's good map awareness from this Viego player, knowing that a lot of people just simply cannot understand this Heimerdinger dimension. It's an entirely different game going up against Heimerdinger. Almost like he controls the rules. And what we see a lot from this Fortune player is simply, well, I can't figure it out and this doesn't make any sense. Well, you're correct, it doesn't make any sense. That is because in a regular matchup on this difficulty level and this level of play, you would already struggle. If both teams had Pantheon in support tanking, and you were trying to play Fortune up against Samira, that would already be a hell of a challenge to try to do that on Fortune. Because Samira is much more casual friendly, because of the loosey-goosey playstyle. But now that you have the great Jinx tanking for you, this isn't going to work out. What I would do if I was put in this situation, which I would very rarely be or most likely not be, although at some point we may experience this on Samira, is I would play purely defensively, stay behind the turrets, and pray to God that the mid and the top are gonna win their matchup, come and help you out so they have some body that they can put on Pantheon. However, because of the personality of this Pantheon player and his jealousy, this matchup is going to turn out surprisingly favorable for the Fortune and the Jinx player, who are actually going to have a chance later down the line. Because naturally winning does not suffice. When this Pantheon player observes that I'm getting a couple kills too many for his liking, so he's gonna go ahead and switch lanes. Which by itself, for a support, Prowling around for a while can be smart, helping other players out, but not if you stay there. Not if you stay there permanently and just abandon your shooter. Very intentionally doing that. Very calculative, noticing that I'm getting a couple of kills too many for his liking, noticing that I'm not dying enough for his liking. Which, it has to be said, we've never so far ran into any player with this level of toxicity who was still highly functional, as we will end up seeing throughout this game. And a little bit of a mental game between this Heimerdinger and Umbressa player, and this is not the champ to do it on, because you're just falling into a trap of handing your enemy the victory by overthinking and a kind of social awkwardness. You don't have to duel this Umbressa straight up because you're two totally different characters. Just stay back a while, sit back, go and play the game defensively up the top lane. It's fine. You can make use of your tools. Pantheon, despite the aesthetics, is built like an assassin, so we need Zed and Talon items for him. And one of those few champions where Eclipse is indeed not entirely wrong, so good call there. Although still with this holding the spear mechanic and charging up your throws being used so frequently, so much of your ability using that Aegis Assault defensively, both of those spells are going to end up undermining the function of Eclipse as a tool, as is so frequently the case. Because after all, the demands for the passive of Eclipse are very high and situational. And we get to enjoy this iconic dynamic in the casuals of Yasuo hysterically running away. Yasuo, one of the most frequently played champions by casuals, and the most molested champion in League of Legends. And the best comp is Ezreal. Ezreal has that dainty, chaotic blink mechanic and those abilities to go can't touch me, and playing footsie with the opposing player but then backing out at the last moment. Add in then the build mistake and your comparison is complete. And this kind of backing out against Warwick is exactly what Ezreal would do successfully. The way it works is you get unnaturally high stats on Yasuo. You get very high damage on Yasuo. He's the only character that is both a shooter and a bruiser at the same time, and has all the shooting potential of a shooter, but in exchange for that, Yasuo's spells only work in very specific cases on enemy champions or on minions. He doesn't have a blink out. You stand your ground with Yasuo and you fight it out. There is no backing out. There is no backing down. Trying to escape like that is going to fail in 100% of the cases. You could easily slice Fortune up in this situation. Yasuo does not support cowards. It is go big or go home, and all your movement is conditional and restricted to dueling, purely designed to engage, and purely based on the enemies that you're targeting. With all this maneuvering, of course, we're gonna hand Fortune a free kill in the mid lane, because this is what you get when you don't hold the line, because there's a great difference between roaming the map for a while as a support and just camping in the mid lane. The bottom lane is going to turn into a 1v2 of Samira up against Jinx and Fortune combined, and since that is one fragile shooter up against two fragile shooters, the turret will end up coming down, upon which Pantheon will go to ping Hysteria, because why on earth can you not defeat two shooter players at the same time by yourself? And we can observe the typical thing that I've referenced many times before, which is that the Drake is just completely left untouched, and when I'm not jungling, the buffs are just not addressed. And somehow, there's no hysteria around it, there's no crisis around it. We're gonna have quite possibly the most incredible escape of all time in this Akali player just running in a straight line with 3 HP left and somehow making it back to her side. Down in the bottom lane, I'm in late, but Samira has those gap closers, so we're fine. We're gonna address this Warwick issue, to which Pantheon should be given his props. This is precisely why you want a Pantheon type on your team in support slot. You don't want them to melt like Lulu or Lux when faced with a Warwick type. And that allowing Warwick to feast on the shooters is typically in casual games the difference between winning and losing. It's a pretty good attempt from this Fortune player to be using bullet time adjacent to the bottom lane turret, but it's surprising how ineffective that skill can be when it's not set up properly and you're not building ability haste. And this Jinx in this situation having to resort to the in and out game without the in and out kit, at the very least, basically the only playstyle you have is to get at maximum range. That bazooka should be up the entire time during this type of matchup. And when you're out of ammo, you go back to the fountain. You don't just tough it out here now. You should be aware of your own abilities. You should never be in short range up against Samira. It's everything that I talked about yesterday. Barely enough spot for one Jinx on a team. Now you have two. That's the entire story. And this Yasuo player perhaps confused about the new delineation for teleport spells. And this Fortune player really has his number. Part of the mind game that Pantheon plays with you, and that makes him so fearsome, is you get stunned for so long by that shield vault, and he's able to do that so frequently. Then once you start attacking back, he puts up Aegis Assault, and now you have 2 seconds of stun, plus the 3 seconds of Aegis Assault, and it feels like you've been shooting at him for 5 seconds and nothing happened. This gives you the illusion that Pantheon is immortal, which is why he is one of the most winning champions. It's a psychological trick. In reality, you're going up against a relatively frail assassin, but the entire first 5 seconds of your duel, you were taken out of the fight, and it makes him look like an unkillable god. This Akali player should give Sion a try. And so, in summary, there are 2 ways forward for Team Red at this point in the game. Either you consider the bottom lane a defensive battle and you slowly retreat up the lane using the turrets to try to snipe a couple of kills and hoping for some jungler ganks from Warwick. As the enemy is pushing farther and farther up the lane, you inherently give up the desire to push the bottom lane because you get that natural evening out of things where Pantheon takes over the mid lane, but then Yasuo drops down to the bottom lane. And that way, as the red team, you can keep your regular team composition and just have Jinx and Fortune there. But otherwise, you need to make active choices and proactive choices. If you want to push this bottom lane at all as the red team, Warwick has to come down there periodically and not just to gank. Akali has to come down there periodically and not just to gank. This game is a tale of Jinx and Fortune just being entirely left to their devices. And that is something that will never work out in your favor. And we're gonna try the same trick twice, of course, because we're not dumb, we're just stupid. This time the flashing in is not enough. I'm thinking about maybe adding Yomu next time. This Yasuo player thinks to try his hand at this Atakan, so I have to tell him to back off. Thankfully he does. We get Atakan inserting himself here, and it's not helping Jinx. Very few things seem to be helping Jinx. You have that Samira ultimate, very useful when people are stupid enough to get close. Not so much when they're running away. Yeah, and this jealousy game that Pantheon is into can be very frustrating when then another player comes down to the bottom lane like Yasuo to help the shooter out, and he starts pinging question marks because he doesn't understand why Yasuo came down. You get that beautiful blade projectile combo from Flare, finishing Jinx off a second time in this play. Jinx who will end up going 0-12 because it's Jinx. And to a Jinx player, that is a mark of honor. That's why we made her the Billboard Girl of League. You get this comical scenario of Yasuo engaging with this Atakan player, Fortune standing right next to him and just letting it happen, not capitalizing on it or anything. Windshield situational here. The best usage Yasuo has up against Jinx and Fortune of Windshield, his second spell, is going to be blocking bullet time. All of the uses here are for nothing. And I'm looking forward to what kind of mayhem we will see in the future around this Atakan. They really created a jungle mob with a lot of potential, especially if it pops up in the bottom lane. You have these constant 4 players around it. One of them is bound to be stupid enough to try it. And we're gonna get some crazy chase down scenarios, I can already tell. On a humane level, kind of a beautiful game, how there is this visceral rejection between blue team players who don't really on a functional level understand what Pantheon is trying to do here, but just are inherently repelled by the jealousy, and they end up taking turns helping me out. We have Umbressa ultimately coming to meet me down in the bottom lane. This Akali player sees her opportunity, but she sees it wrong. Pantheon, high natural armor, can afford to take that turret shot. You get Viego capitalizing on the carry. Warwick is used to super squishy shooters, but I'm not a super squishy shooter, so tough luck. You get these 4 guys to deal with, and you're gonna be glad that you were able to leave alive. This same dynamic over and over again of Yasuo trying to run away. Just no tools for cowards in his kit. Sorry, you picked the wrong champion. Always a good sign when Warwick ends up running away from you. You're going to use that ultimate defensively and protectively. Not that that will speed up the rate at which this Drake is going to go down because I'm not jungling and so nobody's doing the Drake. Because if you don't do it yourself, it simply doesn't get done. All in all, not a bad read on when to use bullet time here. You can just tell they made it so that essentially it became an organized team ability. Bullet time, pretty lousy skill for the casuals, honestly. Arguably the most iconic skill in the video game, the most recognizable skill in the video game, bullet time. Pretty lousy without a proper setup. This Akali player perhaps came from a Diablo background or something similar, holding just one button down. Not really how this game is played. If you want to stick around, you're gonna want to look into very slow tanky champions. Those are the easiest to play, and you can learn how to do that first. And at some point going out there just becomes punishment for your team, because all you're doing is dying, buying us all free stuff. And yet somehow, after all of this, in an attempt to keep games close and allow for comebacks, the goal difference is only 2,000. Go and figure. One of the most iconic moments for freebies and free kills when you have this kind of lineup on your enemy team with Jinx and Fortune is when that bottom lane turret comes down on the red team side, and now Jinx and Fortune have nowhere to run to, and anything that happens at this point, you're instantly dead. You're pure fodder. And this game confirmed what I was thinking all along. I've been saying this for 2 weeks. How this spirit visage thing was getting out of control and that it was becoming like a new cult of the ruined king. That everybody was getting the same tank item, and indeed you see here Warwick is now stacking at this point in the game Jack Show on top of spirit visage, adding up to about 85 magic protection and magic resistance. And you're going up against Umbressa, Viego, Yasuo, Samira, and Pantheon. You, my friend, are intellectually limited, and it is precisely that type of player who ends up having a lot of success down the line on Warwick, the easiest champion in the game. And when you boil it all down, we had Heimerdinger, who serves as a proof with a 5 kill and 5 death record that you should not be afraid to try your luck at Heimerdinger, because this was clearly a person who has no idea what they're doing on Heimerdinger and is completely fresh to it, has a completely un-Heimerdinger-like mindset, using nothing of that territorial element that Heimerdinger offers, still breaking even on a losing team. We have Warwick, whom I just discussed. We have Akali. Akali, of who I've already said you should learn how to play tank first if you're new to basic mechanics. This Jinx player going 0-12 with a perfect Jinx build. Just click on any random thing in the champion selection. Just click on a random thing. That's my advice. We have this Fortune player with some basic map awareness, but you ended up doing a lot of harm because of your champ selection. In no way is Fortune a support. On Team Blue we have Umbressa, who accomplished only ability cooldown, which, to be honest, ability cooldown is a useful and underrated stat, but you're gonna need way more if you want to take care of the top lane for every team. We have this Viego player, who's overthinking things and seems to be nervous throughout the entire game. It's the typical behavior you get when your actions are guided more by feverish rationalizations in the moment rather than going with the rhythm of the game. And the reality is, if you don't have some kind of experience beforehand, you're not gonna be able to make all of it up on the fly anyway. Just start entering combat and go, you're not engaging enough. Viego was essentially AFK for half of this game. He may as well have been. We have Shadows Clicks here, who from everything that I can tell was an extremely young person. Attracted by the Bushi, can you blame him? You're using largely correct items, but with all that warrior aesthetic and all that Bushi aesthetic comes a Bushi attitude. They all have matching playstyles. It's not nonsense. There is no in and out game with Yasuo. He's all in, no out. So get out if you don't like that. We have myself trying out a new champ, liking what I'm seeing what I'm liking. We have this Pantheon player who has a lot of mechanical skill and is extremely active and extremely engaged and has a very good understanding of team composition. However, your arrogance will have you suffer many defeats, and there are many teams that will simply collapse because of your condescending attitude. On a macro level, we have Umbressa, can take a lot of punishment. Viego, bit of a glass cannon. Yasuo can take a lot of punishment. Samira, a lot tougher than a regular shooter. Pantheon can take a lot of punishment. And you see the flip side, the red side. Heimerdinger, squishy mage, relies purely on spells and nothing else. Goes down in 5 seconds without his spells. We have Warwick, bruiser type. We have Akali, very difficult champion to play, highly skill reliant, glass cannon. We have Jinx, glass cannon. We have Fortune, glass cannon. You see that? It's the same thing that we've been saying for a month now. It's the same thing again. One team has terrible strategies and terrible items, but the other team also has terrible strategies and terrible items. The real difference is that the blue team picked a bunch of champions that give you a lot of time to think because they have survivability and they're bruiser-esque, and the red team picked a bunch of champions where if you don't make all of your skill shots, you're completely screwed. And the rest is history. Taking a look at the scoreboard here. Yeah, this is kids stuff. This is just young people stuff because it looks really cool. It's Umbral and we're all dark, right? We're Dark Warrior 111. But the reality is you should get that when you have Teemo on the map, when nobody gets it. Yeah, League of Legends is a lot about matchups and about dueling, identifying your enemy. The game keeps going because it's very specific and you can't make general rules in advance. League of Legends cannot just be solved. It's new every day, every single day. The values come together differently and the matchups work out differently. And this is why just empowering yourself is a typically youthful, childish thing to do. This does not work at all when your matchup is Heimerdinger. When your matchup is Heimerdinger, such an imposing control mage, able to surround you in a very similar manner to Aloy, your entire build should be focused around that, and you should open with a bunch of anti-magic items, not with these self-enhancing tools that really, when you boil it all down, the primary tool of this thing is to increase farm speed. Which is just how you put yourself in the pain blender, and we all pay the price for that. Ah, isn't it cutesy? The universal Warwick build, and see, the people who are experienced with it inherently know that the one thing that is missing from it is a bunch of durability and tank items. So the people who are able to make it work basically don't really use the universal Warwick build because they instantly add a bunch of tank items onto it. Yeah, no way to really play around Akali. It's a skill check, and some people should just stay away from Akali. Why do you have to start off with the hardest stuff right away? Learn an easy champion first. You know, the things that you can pad here is you can add maybe the hourglass without throwing Akali's natural roll off too much, without interfering too much in a negative sense with her spell power. To buy you some extra time, but at the end of the day, whatever you do, you're never going to make Akali tanky no matter what you do. So stay away from Akali if you don't have skill. Because, by the way, it's worth pointing out you're going up against a horrible player, and this is what you come away with. So this was a person facing a very, very easy matchup. If there ever was a clear indication that Akali was not for you, it would be this. Yeah, and then we have the great Jinx, and this is just literally the best, especially when they didn't waste money on boots or anything, and they just literally got down to it and they built her exactly the way that she's supposed to be built. First ramp up that attack speed, and then add the cannon to it with the penetration. This is waste no money on movement, wasting no money on little things, wasting no money on in-between or trinket things. This is exactly right. This is the true Jinx. Look at this, everybody. The true Jinx comes out. Don't you love Jinx, guys? Don't you love Jinx? This is correct. This is how she's supposed to be built, yeah. That's how great of a character she is. Has made many people happy, Jinx. Always know that you're gonna get a free meal when you're going up against Jinx. Moving on.
Killed many captains. Let's see how you measure up.
Minions have spawned.
I'm not built to win. I'm built to conquer.
been slain.
How did that old trick going? Ah, right.
You have slain an enemy.
Those who followed the Ascended burned away my home. So don't expect me to follow anyone. Why be average when I can be savage?
An enemy has been slain.
Virtues? I've got a few. Vices? A few more.
Killing spree.
I never go out of style.
Only one eye enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain. An ally has been slain.
Money buys a gun. Thrill buys a reputation. Nothing more lethal than comfort. The Empire values strength. I value style. We're good buddies. Took years of practice for everyone else. Indari was a great captain. She taught me how to shoot. I taught myself how to kill.
An enemy has been slain.
Refuge.
You have slain an enemy.
Where I draw my strength. Never look back!
Rampage.
I kill for fame and fortune. Ha! They're idiots. Just like both colors.
An enemy has been slain. Shut down.
I get some blood on these boots. The color's a bit dull. Thrilling! Ha!
Turret plating will fall soon.
To celebrate the occasion. Some choose steel, others bullets. Why not both? Take fast! Well-behaved women don't need in Noxus. I feel most alive when I'm walking the line. Taking a quick break. Try not to die while I'm gone.
Rampage.
Born in Shurima, raised by Noxus. Maybe I'll die in Demacia to make things interesting, huh? You're mine!
An ally has been slain.
I don't
An ally has been slain. Enemy double kill.
Danger runs with me! Life's simple. Take it.
An enemy is unstoppable.
I care most about my warband or my family, or the changes depending on who gets in my way.
An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Your turret has been destroyed. An enemy has been slain.
I am the beauty and the beast.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
My folks keep telling me to settle down. Not my stuff.
An enemy has been slain. An enemy is dominating.
Settle down, sweet babe. We have sinned. They are wrong.
Has destroyed a turret. Your turret has been destroyed.
Years of practice for everyone else. People always ask about my weapons. Right hand blade, left hand blade. Vanquish on the back. Why be average when I can be savage? Virtue? I've got a few. Vice. I never go out of style.
An enemy has been slain.
Only need one eye to hit mine. Money buys a gun or two. Thrill buys
Your
a
team
reputation.
has destroyed a turret.
Sometimes I'm the hero, other times I'm the villain. It's all a matter of perspective.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Nothing more lethal than comfort.
Godlike.
The Empire gathers strength. I have stuff. How did that old trick go? Right. Refugee. That label is very beyond my strength.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain. Your turret has been destroyed.
In every girl, there is a queen. Hope I get some blood on my boots.
Legendary.
The color's a bit dull.
Shut down.
Thrilling! Ha! Maybe I'll get a tattoo to celebrate the occasion.
Legendary. Has destroyed a turret.
Others bullets.
Your team has destroyed a turret. An enemy has been slain.
No! This took years of practice. For everyone else.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
I chose this life. And sure, someday it might get me killed. But till then, I'm unstoppable.
has been slain.
Darius, Swain.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain. An ally has been slain.
Well-behaved women don't make it in Noxus. I feel most alive when I'm walking the line. Growing up, my mama taught me death isn't the scariest thing. It's a mother's rage. My kind of rain!
Shut down.
Never fades.
An enemy has been slain. Shut down. Shut down. Aced. An ally has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret. Your team has destroyed an inhibitor.
Let's see that one that.